And like you said, many people make the mistake that they put the craziest thing in the beginning, and then the audience is going to get hyped, but they're going to lose interest throughout the whole show, and it's not going to work. So actually you got to learn how you can build up. And in the end of the act, there's going to be the hardest trick. And that's also hard because you need to be able to maintain your breathing, maintain your energy to be able to do your hardest trick in the end of the full 5 minutes, 10 minutes act.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Roe Show. This week we have Veli-Matti Saarela from Finland. He is one of the legends of tricking and has pioneered many different aspects of the industry. Vellu and I first met at a workshop in Austria where he was coaching and even taught me how to do a butterfly twist. He is regarded as one of the best trickers in the world, and he is one of the very few trickers that has his own very professional show team. He has opened his own gym and he trains future trickers and show performers. We're going to be discussing how Vellu preps for tricking shows and discuss aspects of how to create your very own show team. Earlier in the season, we spoke to Boris Verkovsky from Cirque du Soleil about shows, but Vellu and I are going to discuss a little bit more of a grassroots approach to performing. If you're a young athlete looking for inspiration to create a career in flipping, this episode is definitely for you. Alright guys, let's go. Vellu, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm doing very well. We were just able to open the gym again 1 week ago, so after 2 months of being closed, it feels amazing to be back here again.
That's great. Are you a little sore? Are you getting back into it now? Maybe too much cheeseburgers and beer?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe not cheeseburgers and beer, but Coca-Cola, candy, and chocolate. And working on my computer, trying to change everything from teaching at the gym to trying to do it online. So I was spending really long days in front of my computer building an online teaching platform for trickers and eating a lot. So now it's time to get back in shape for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So give our audience a little bit of perspective. Who are you? What do you do? How did you get into tricking? And what's your story?
Yeah, I'm Vellu from Tampere, Finland, been tricking for 15 years. And I started back in the days just seeing a video in internet. And from the first day, I've been hooked and never looked back. I've been training a lot, especially in the beginning of my tricking career, 10, 12 times a week. And in 2009, after 5 years of tricking, I managed to win the first unofficial tricking European Championships, the big trick organized in Germany, and went on to win it again in 2011. And after traveling around the world for more than 100 different international tricking events, I started to look more into like, what's next? What's the next step for me as a tricker? I battle with my idols. I met my tricking idols. I've seen the tricking community and being part of all that love and the amazing community. But what would be the next step? And that's when I started to look more into performing and also built the idea in my head that would it be possible to be a tricking professional performer or actually any kind of a professional tricker in the future? Because during that time, there wasn't really almost anybody who was making a living out of tricking.
So you have now created your own team, Legend Trick. And how did that start? Who thought of that? What's the storyline there?
Yeah, well, I did my first performance already back in 2007 with a team called Team Unido. It was an existing team in Tampere already back in those days. And we went on performing for almost 8 years, but it was like something in between doing it as a hobby and then slowly moving more into the professional direction, but not really making a living out of it. And a small group, like basically me, my wife Karina, and Anssi were the ones in 2015 who decided that we want to pursue and do this more professionally. And we started our own team called Vellusta team, which later on got rebranded into Legend Trick Entertainment and Legend Trick Gym. And we three of us, we were the main team back in the days, and now we have one more guy called Wippe, who is our main teacher at the gym, and us four are the core team running the team and the business.
That is so cool. So you have taken what is probably more of like an amateur team, sort of little bits here and there, little events there and there, and then said, you know what, we can make this a full-time career. Were you one of the first ever to really look at tricking as a full-time professional performance career, not just a hobby?
Like, if I look back into the history, for me, my idols were Anis Chauffeur, Jeremy Martinez, and Daniel Graham. And those trickers, they were living in California, and they moved to Los Angeles and made a tricking career first out of performing, and then later on they moved into stunts. And that was my inspiration. But in Europe, we had only Sefa from Germany, who was doing something kind of similar around the same time when we started to really push it. So I would say me and Sefa were the first ones, and then later on became to be Skillers from Russia and Vivienne from France. Still, there is only, like I would say, a handful of people in the world doing professional tricking performing. But it's definitely a pleasure to see there's more and more circus performers and b-boys who are using elements of tricking in order to spice up their tricks and performance on the stage.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, because it's a little bit of everything. When we actually watch your performances, you have a lot more dance choreography than a traditional tricker might use. Is that part of your recipe to success, is having a little bit more of a variety?
Definitely, because many trickers get stuck with the fact that they think they can only do tricking. But if you try to do tricking 5 minutes in a row or 10 minutes in a row, you're going to be exhausted after the first minute. You cannot go back and forth with combos. And it's also exhausting for the audience. So you have to come up with something to do in between. Nice transitions from one combo and one blow up to another. And that's where the creativity and the different skills such as dancing, maybe doing martial arts hands or using some kind of equipment. Many martial artists might use a weapon. Circus artists might have staffs, what they're spinning. We also have added some fire and LED into our shows to come up with different elements that make it interesting for the audience to watch, and also gives the time for the trickers to rest during the show, because you just cannot go on doing gainers or corks for 5 minutes in a row.
No, that's very smart. Like it's kind of like the Cirque du Soleil model. They have the great actual acrobatics, but again, it almost just goes over your head when you see it over and over. You don't really know where one thing ends and another begins. So you need a storyline. So you're taking a story and using LEDs or fire or just dancing or whatever it is to rest the athletes, also rest the audience, right? Get them kind of up and downs, like periodization and training. You can't just go hard for, an hour straight. And you've been able to really bring it together into a really nice show. That's it's very smart.
Yeah, thank you. And that's definitely what's needed, because many times, and I must say that me also in the beginning, I just wanted to put the hardest tricks inside, but later on I understood that actually it doesn't matter. The difficulty of the tricks doesn't matter, but it matters how you present them to the audience. Even the most simple big round of flash kick, timed perfectly in the music with other performers falling down and only one going up, it makes a huge effect and a huge difference to the fact if you're just tricking all the time and not changing the rhythm and the pace of the show during the act.
Well, that's a good point. So when you were constructing your choreography with your team, is really at the front of your brain, you're thinking more, what does the audience see? You're not thinking about the tricking and, so-and-so from this country just did double back off 1 foot or whatever it is, so we have to do that. You're not thinking that. You're thinking, what does the audience that doesn't know about tricking necessarily want to see? Is that true?
Yes. Mostly you have to think about the audience, but just for me, because I'm still, I have a tricking in my heart forever. Yeah, I always like to add a little bit something just for myself. For example, many times if I was working on a longer creation and a show production in Turkey for 7 months, and almost every night I wanted to do the one double cork during the show on the stage. Even though the audience doesn't understand, like I could do really high cork with a nice position and they would probably be more hyped for it, but it felt important for me to know that I'm able to do the harder move on the stage as well. But I think in general, the key to the success is that you need to look from the eyes of the audience, from a normal public. For trickers or trampoline artists or anybody who wants to do a trampoline artist, how do you call yourself? Street trampers?
Trampolinist. I don't know. We just say trampolinist.
Trampolinist. Yeah. Whoever wants to make a show, think not only about from your perspective, but ask from your friends who never maybe saw people doing trampoline, what looks amazing, what looks nice, and then see if you can build up from there.
That's a really good piece of advice. Yeah, like we've done shows a long time, and the first thing I learned day one was there's no need to do triples. There's no need to do all that crazy stuff. All you need to do is have a funny little act where the guy's jumping and tries to stand on your shoulders and falls down a couple of times and finally gets it. You know what I mean? It's just
Mm-hmm.
that simple. And I think a lot of sports tend to get people that get so into their little niche, whatever that is, that they forget the audience. You know, in gymnastics, we can't even tell what's going on, right? There's a whole discussion right now going on through Facebook about, you know, well, how much are you doing for the audience versus how much for the actual sport? Because then you need a balance. Because if it's just for the audience, then you kind of lose the sport as its own separate entity. But if it's only for the people within the sport, then they can't sell it. You can't sell to an audience that doesn't know what's going on, you know? So it's that balance point, you know?
Yeah, definitely. If you look at sports like basketball or ice hockey, it's both. Like it's very entertaining for the audience. They can understand what's going on, but at the same time, it's a real sport. Like you really need to get all the little different details and techniques down. And it's definitely a challenge for gymnastics, for parkour, for trampoline, and for tricking to figure out, and b-boying, that how to do that, how to keep the pure sport form how it was, but at the same time make it interesting for the audience. I think like you were talking about the comedy, like jumping on top of somebody and adding something what the audience, like a story that they can relate to. And when you manage to mix that somehow with the highest level of the sports, that's going to be the key.
Yeah, 100%. And it's that balance, which is tough. It's like you said, it's creativity. It's not just difficulty. And a lot of people don't really understand that. And so as you're creating your show, how long does it take you to create a show? Is each show different, or do you have a general sort of go-to plan, or is every client looking for something completely revolutionary?
That's a great question, and mostly we're working with a few acts that we have rehearsed very well to music, and we've been performing. For example, our 4-person tricking act, we've been performing now for 5 years. When you perform an act for a longer time, it makes it possible to, you know, like all the tiny details, all the little like ways to emphasize the audience or emphasize some tricks. It gets changed and rehearsed better and better over the years. So I think it's important to keep at least some acts for a longer time. But then, in the other hand, some clients do want a customized show, and then it depends on the project. Some want it faster. The longer time you manage to have it, the better. But also, it's more expensive for the client to pay for the artist's rehearsal time. So that's why it's good to have like a different little building blocks. And then from this building blocks, you know, you can put the handstand act and a tricking act together with the pair acrobatics act and a juggler together. And once all of them have their ready choreographies, it's easier to somehow mingle and put it together. If we're talking about the longer show production, doing a 1-hour show, normally it's 2 months creation time, 8 hours per day, 5 times a week. All the artists, director, choreographer working for 2 months. And that's when you usually have a ready 1-hour show.
That is crazy. So you guys are really putting a lot into these sort of shows. You know, a lot of people will look at something like tricking sometimes and say, okay, it's a guy that does a backflip. Okay, whatever, you know, and they almost won't appreciate how much goes into just structuring and making sure everything's on time and all that. And when you guys are doing this, how much is it tricking in terms of the actual skills that you're developing with the show versus how much choreography and timing and musicality and all that sort of stuff? What's the ratios?
Yeah, 90% it's choreography, music, timing, everything else. Because almost I would say 100%, because all of us who do the shows, we already know tricking. Tricking is the very, very easy part. If you want to be a performer, first of all, you need to be able to do what you do very well. And of course, you need to sometimes work on the combinations, but basically I want our performers to already be able to do everything what we need in the shows, so that we can only work on the musicality, the dance choreographies, the maybe tricks that we do together as a group where you need timing to jump over each other or all that stuff. So basically, I would say it's like 100% about the musicality choreography. But of course, while you're training it, you at the same time doing the tricks. So you cannot say that you're not tricking. You're still tricking, but you definitely need to focus on a lot of different other things, which is hard for many trickers, because what I've noticed, many trickers just want to do tricking, and when they need to start to learn to count eights while they're doing tricks to be able to continue straight into dance choreography, it can be very frustrating for some of the trickers.
Well, and that's why I think I'm seeing a lot of these freestyle sports, you know, everyone kind of starts off by just, you know, quadruple back tuck on trampoline, court combo on ground, and tumbling this and that. But they haven't quite figured out exactly how to make shows out of it in their own little discipline. I know X Pogo is basically doing the exact same model that you're doing with pogos, and they're doing like double flips on pogos and stuff like that, trying to make it a show so that they can sell it. I don't see how freestyle sports are really going to propagate unless they get Red Bull to basically sign a big fat contract, or they can get out there and organize themselves into little performing teams at a more local level rather than just the big shows, you know?
Exactly. I think it's really important for people to do it more on the local level, because first of all, many people locally are going to see what is tricking, what is trampoline. And second of all, it's going to give them an opportunity to make what they do as they're going to be able to make a living out of it. And that's when they can expand and for the future think about the fat contracts with Red Bull or whatever, the bigger productions. But first of all, you got to be able to provide a living for yourself and get started somehow. And like you said, many people make the mistake that they put the craziest thing in the beginning, and then the audience is going to get hyped, but they're going to lose interest throughout the whole show, and it's not going to work. So actually, you got to learn how you can build up. And in the end of the act, there's going to be the hardest trick. And that's also hard because you need to be able to maintain your breathing, maintain your energy to be able to do your hardest trick in the end of the full 5 minutes, 10 minutes act. So it's there's a lot into it, but when you start to do it and when you start to figure it out, you will learn many aspects, and you will figure out that it's more than just the tricks. There is much more into it.
It's all about that performance and showing and communication with the audience, I guess, is probably the easiest way to sum it up. You got to really tell them a story. And when you're telling your audience a story, do you ever include them in your show? Do you ever bring them on stage and trick over them or do something, have them involved, or does that have too much risk?
Quite rarely, but we used to do it, especially in the beginning. Easy trick is to pull people from the audience, you know, put 6, 7 people and side flip over them. It's nice to have some how to say it, connection or engagement with the audience during the show, but it's also more like a street style show. Lately, actually last little Christmas season, we worked together with mentalists, the magicians, and that was a really nice act, because the magicians, they were taking people from the audience and we were playing like we were the members of the audience, and they hypnotized us to try to, my wife was doing handstands on hoverboard, and you know, first she was playing like she cannot actually use the hoverboard, and then later on, after the mentalists did their thing, she performed the full 4 minutes handstand hoverboard act. So it was kind of like we had the audience, like it was fully connected, but it was pre-planned with the magicians, with us playing the audience. And sometimes we do a little bit of connecting things, but actually now that you mentioned it, maybe we should try to come up with something new for the future. It's been too long since the last.
There you go. I want royalties.
Okay, 5% is for Greg Rowe.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so then what about, okay, so you have the show, you got the contract, everything is going well, you guys are all performed, you've done your 5 days a week for 8 hours and all this, and it's about to be in a couple of weeks it's showtime. What kind of lead up do you do in terms of, from a business perspective? Do you guys have a big promotional sort of campaign that you push in, or does the host venue do that, or do you guys help with that? How do you integrate all the ticket sales and stuff before the show?
That's a good question. Well, mostly we've been working for different bigger entertainment agencies who might have the platform and who are responsible for selling the tickets. So actually, in terms of our own show productions, where we would, for example, tour different theaters around Finland or around Europe, we haven't done it yet. So for that, we are about to get to that level, and it's on the plans. We already, you know, we have the budget, we have everything ready, and how it would be, you would have to go 6 months early, hardcore with the marketing already, and then of course leading up to the event, the actual performance, you would few weeks before you would have to ramp it up and be seen everywhere. Nowadays, the easiest way to be seen is social media, because you're able to have the organic reach and on top of it the paid reach. So
yeah, and then you can also
no, well,
start you can also then start putting in we're starting to see some people interconnect, I guess, the social media with the performance. So they'll have a live stream version come out, or like one part of the show would be a live streamed, and then that would go to an audience that then would have a giveaway or some kind. And we're seeing a lot more of this sort of connectivity between the online and the show world, and they're really being meshed together quite nicely. Any ideas on doing something like that with your shows?
oh, definitely, especially now during Corona times, because everybody is stuck at home, they cannot go and watch the real show. So live performances through internet is a real thing that's going to happen. Uh, I think regarding to that, the first market that we're going to tap into is event agencies who already have the platform to build events for different corporations. So they build online events where maybe people from the company are talking, or some professionals, about the subject that they want to tell to their audience, whether it's their staff or their clients. And to not make it boring, it would be nice to have a show the same way like a real event. So I think that definitely have some kind of value, and we already been talking with some event agencies about the online live events and having a show inside the live event. So that's something that we would like to develop more in the future. But I think the whole market in general is kind of still in shock. Like everybody's trying to figure out what's the right way to now answer to the crisis that we have in our hands. And it's still taking some time, but it's good to be there as early as possible to
Well, yeah,
then.
I think it's just forcing people to think ahead more than they really want to. Most people just kind of live day by day because that's about as much as they can handle, right? But once something like this comes across, all of a sudden it kind of kicks everyone in the butt and says, whoa, what if? Maybe we should start putting our ducks in order, as they say, and start thinking about that online world, considering all these freestyle sports have come together because of digital media. Right? Without digital media, they wouldn't even exist. That's where Damien got his start. That's where I got my start. That's where tricking got its start and all that sort of stuff. If we didn't have that social media, none of this would really, or at least it wouldn't exist in the same form, in the same easily accessible sort of way. So yeah.
Definitely, and it wouldn't have been able to spread so fast like it did now.
Exactly. And that's definitely important. You got to get it out there real fast. But when you're doing your shows and everything's going good, obviously you're having a blast, you're traveling to new countries, you got your team there, it's like your big family. But what are some of the downsides? What's the tough part about being a regular performer that's always on the road, or regularly on the road at least?
Definitely the number one, I would say, is all the traveling. In the first is very glamorous. Same like back in the days when I used to go to tricking events, I was so excited. You get to see the world. Same with performing. You get to see amazing places. But after you start to travel 80, 100 days per year, you realize that, oh my God, I'm on, like 1/3 of the year, I'm on the road. And it's not only the nice hotels or warm countries, but it's a lot of airports and more airports and traveling and being on the road. So that's definitely one of the main downsides, and also one of the biggest reasons why we started Legend Trick Gym, to be able to not like have to take everything outside of Finland. Actually, now we're able to be in our city, be in Finland, and build the local community, and don't have to go to travel all the time around the world if we don't want to.
Yeah.
And what else? I would say also the finding the right people, like in the beginning, to find the right team and the loyal and trustable people who you can trust 100% everything with your show. That was definitely very difficult. And I'm happy now to be in the place where I have a really amazing team around me, with the like-minded people who are really pushing for the positivity and for the great things in tricking and in our company. But in the beginning, I think anybody who's going to start, you must be ready to do some mistakes, and there's going to be hard things to deal with in regards of that, before you can really figure out the right way and with what kind of people you should do business with.
Yeah, finding the right people, because they all say the nice things at the start, and oh yeah, I'm gonna be here on time, and oh, I'm dedicated, and but all of a sudden you give them that first paycheck, and then you just see that motivation sort of decrease over time because they get soft and they just get relaxed. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
As a producer, how do you help manage that, the expectations? Like if morale is kind of slowing down after, you know, lots of shows, what do you do to kind of spice things back up again? Is there any tricks of the trade you have?
Hmm. I being straight with people, that's most important. Like, and already since the very beginning. So even before you start to work together with somebody, you need to be very clear on the expectations you have of him, and also what he or she has, like what is your both expectations, and then you try to find all the time the way to meet in the middle. If you know like what's motivating each individual, because it's different for all people, then you know kind of from which direction to go to or from which rope to pull in the right situations. And usually I like to do it through motivation, like figuring out that like what's your dream, like obviously my dream I'm already building with the gym, with the production company, doing tricking shows, uh, be giving the possibility for professional trickers to make a living out of tricking. But I also want to know, for the people who are working for me, what's your dream, what do you want to do in the future, and help them to get into their goals. And when you have this kind of relationship, then you can just grow together and there's no limit.
I think that's a good point. A lot of people look at like, oh, it's my production, my show, you should jump on my train. But at the end of the day, we're all individuals. We all have our own sort of pathway that we're going on. So if you are going to be coordinating people with all their different pathways, you guys somehow bring them together and figure out what they want.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
think that's really important. Listen to the people who you're working with, and try to grow together. Then people are gonna stay motivated. And of course, sometimes you gotta be harder. Like you gotta go and say strict to somebody if they being lazy or not giving their all at the training. Mostly you gotta lead by example. Like you put 200% its energy, and when people see it, they're like, oh man, like he's so tired, he's doing so much, but he's still going for it so hardcore. So okay, like we gotta man up and go for it as well.
Well, that's a good point. Like how do you can't really argue against the guy or girl that's just go, 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 go. You can't say, oh well, that's just them, you know, I don't have to do that. Blah, blah, blah. No, of course you're naturally gonna say, damn, okay, I suck. All right, I gotta step it up here. You know, and that I think that's the easiest way to get people to follow you is by simply running faster than them, going faster, going harder, and helping them too. It's not like you're running away from them and they have to catch up. It's you're always a step ahead, but you're always then handing them a bit of help to so that they can get there as well. And it's that constant reciprocation that really makes a good leader.
Exactly. You're running together, and you're just making the pace faster by running faster. And that way you're helping the others run faster as well.
Exactly. And you can bring in all their different strengths and weaknesses. You know, there's stuff that you can do that other people can't do, and other things that people can do that you can't do, and all this sort of stuff. So take your team and make sure you capitalize on everyone's strength and capitalize the most and try to diminish the weakness by making up for it as a group.
Definitely. It's very important when building a team also to understand the strong and weak points of everybody, because if you know what are your weak points and you have bring people in who can manage those things better, much better than you, then you can grow really fast and really, really well.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. So, as before we go, is there any advice you would give to a young tricker that wants to be professional, that wants to perform potentially at least a little bit, but wants to get into kind of the space that you're in? What would be the first few steps you would say that they should do?
Be humble, train your tricks to really high level, and then also don't think only about whether you manage to land the triple or the dub dub, because that's not what you need on the stage. So you need to learn to make your tricks really clean and beautiful. So stretch a lot, learn to control your landings, and that's the most important part. After you have that down, try to figure out an easy way to get started. So maybe a local, maybe your city is organizing a small event for the youngsters at the city. Go and ask if you can perform there. First, build some kind of I would say 2 to 3 minutes act, and it's much easier if you have few friends to start with, and start to perform it. After you get started, it all gets easier because you're gonna get feedback from people. They're gonna tell you what they like, what they didn't like, and from there on, you're going to be able to grow slowly, little by little. Most important also to keep on trusting the process. Figure out some skills in between the tricks that it's not only the tricks, but you have the dance choreography or you have the comedy or something in between to be able to make a complete full show. And the most important part, have fun with it, because if you don't enjoy the process, after 6 months, 1 year, 2, 3 years, you're gonna stop, and that's gonna be the end of it. So you gotta have fun doing it. I would say most important, learn to control your landings, get flexible to have clean tricks, get some friends to start with you. Just try to get started in any way you can. Local events, start performing, and from there on, you start growing. And anytime, if you want some help, feel free to message me, Vellusta in Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to reach me, and I would be happy to help anybody who wants to pursue a tricking career with professional performing. I would be happy to share my ideas and my tips and what I did right, what I did wrong in the beginning, and how I think it would be the easiest for you to get started.
That's awesome. That is great advice. And how can they reach you at Legend Trick Gym? Is there a website for that they can go to?
Oh yes, there is a website called gym.legendtrick.com. And if they want to see the performance side, that's just legendtrick.com. So you can go and see our different acts we're producing, different kind of productions we have done in the past, and if you're interested on the performance side. And actually, yeah, maybe the easiest way to reach me, even better than Vellusta in Instagram, is Legend Trick Gym, because the profile is smaller, but I'm still reading it every day. So there is less risk that your message is going to get lost in the inbox.
Awesome. All right, guys. So make sure you guys check that out. He's got a lot of great stuff and good to kind of just spark the creative juices, see how people have done and take something that Vellu's done and add a little extra spice of your own creativity into it. And just like he said, get started. All right, Vellu, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us a little bit and give us a little bit of a heads up for our audience. These are young athletes that are really trying to get into and kind of hear the different perspectives of if they want to become a professional flipper of some kind. And so thank you so much for giving us a bit of advice on your perspective and hearing your story a bit.
Thank you so much, Greg, for having me. And I would want to say the final word for all of you who think about being a professional flipper. It is possible, because I wish somebody would have said that to me when I was young, and I proved it to be possible. And now I know that for sure it's possible for you. So just keep working hard and keep dreaming, and anything will be possible.
Awesome.
Thank you. And thank you, Greg, for giving me the platform to share my ideas and my story a little bit. And wish you all the best during these hardcore times, and I hope to see you soon somewhere when we can travel again.
We will. We'll be in Europe, hopefully July, August, and we'll definitely meet up and do something together.
Nice. That's awesome.
Awesome, man. Thanks. Have a great day, and we'll get you back on the show some other time to talk about more cool stuff.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Have a great day as well. Take care, and bye-bye.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a few things. There's a big world out there worth exploring, and I'm happy to be able to bring these great experiences right to you through this podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast and learned something, please share and take a screen grab of our funky cartoons and hashtag GRT certified for a chance to win a shout out to our community. Also, please leave us a review to be part of helping this information get out into the industry. It's much appreciated. Along with these podcasts, we have a large online content hub that we call the GRT Network, with many other interviews and full tutorials and written content discussing everything about acrobatics. We will be constantly growing this archive of videos like a cross between Netflix and Wikipedia for anyone in the acrobatic industry. We also have a complete online educational program for athletes of all levels that provides a do-it-yourself pathway to success for any acrobat. Check out our constantly growing library of playlists that will teach you anything from tightening up your social media, to how to get around fear, to even learning all the biology that underlies all your acrobatic skills. We work very hard with our team around the world to provide this exclusive content for you, and appreciate any donations made to the FTA to help keep these episodes coming at you. And if you want all the content, become a GRT Network full member to get exclusive content before everyone else and access to special discounts and giveaways through our amazing global partners. Thanks guys, see you next episode.